بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بسيدنا ومولانا أمير المؤمنين، والحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يوم ندعو كل أناس بإمامهم. The first of our salawat in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli. The second in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The third with your loudest voices in honor of Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. One final request for the brothers to come closer to the front. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Just come a bit closer to the front. Respected scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The event of Ghadir is one of the most important events in Islamic history. At the same time, one of the most famous as well as one of the most controversial. An event which has been discussed by Muslim and non-Muslim historians alike. And an event which has to be examined in depth, for it is an event which is pivotal in studying the life of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. As we know, the event took place on the 18th of Dhul Hijjah, on the 10th year after Hijrah, after the farewell pilgrimage of the Holy Prophet. The Prophet had elucidated within a sermon about the rights of the Muslims which were to be enjoined after he had passed away. Rights which God had over them, rights which their fellow creation had over them, and rights which they had over themselves. And amongst the most contentious lines which he mentioned within that sermon was the line, "Man kuntu mawlah fahada Aliyun mawlah." Whoever I am the master of, Ali is now the master. Ali ibn Abi Talib on that day was 33 years and 5 months old, and was seen as being a relatively young companion in contrast to the rest who were present. As in on that day you found Ammar ibn Yasir was 66 years of age. You found Uthman ibn Affan was 55 years of age. Umar ibn al-Khattab was 51 years of age. Abu Bakr was 60 years of age. Talha and Zubair were around 37. And he was seen as being the youngest of what were relatively elder statesmen who surrounded him. And indeed it was this issue of his age which would be the most contentious issue about his leadership on that day. Because what had happened was, since that event, many had posed the question, was Ali ibn Abi Talib too young to lead the Muslim Ummah on that day, as in the rest were relatively elder statesmen compared to him? And we find, before we go into the analysis, that there are 4 narrations, 4 different discussions between Ibn Abbas and the second Khalifa relating as to why Ali ibn Abi Talib was not given his right on that day. 2 of these discussions indicate 2 separate reasons, whereas the other 2 indicate that his age was the main reason why he was not allowed to be caliph on that day. Let's look at the 4 discussions. In the first one, Umar ibn al-Khattab tells Ibn Abbas, he says to him, "Do you think it was Abu Bakr who blocked Ali from being the leader?" Ibn Abbas said, "What's your opinion?" He said, "It wasn't him, it was the Quraysh. Because they viewed Ali ibn Abi Talib like a butcher views a bull. What does he mean? He means that the Quraysh, many of them, their fathers had been killed by the sword of Ali ibn Abi Talib at Badr, at Uhud, at Khandaq, at Khaybar, at Hunayn. And therefore he said to him, they view Ali ibn Abi Talib like a butcher views the bull. In the same way a butcher wants to sacrifice the bull, the Quraysh would not allow Ali to be leader because in many cases they couldn't forgive what he had done to their parents. That was one discussion. A second one, Umar ibn Khattab tells Ibn Abbas very clearly that the reason Ali ibn Abi Talib did not become caliph was what? Was because prophethood and khilafah cannot be in the same family. That he said prophethood rested in Bani Hashim. That we accept. But khilafah cannot rest in the same family. That's the second reason. But the third and the fourth reasons are my angle of discussion tonight, which blatantly indicate that they felt he was too young to lead the Muslim Ummah. What did he say? In one of the discussions, Umar ibn al-Khattab tells Ibn Abbas, what's wrong with your cousin? He said to him, what do you mean? He said, he is worshipping so much now that he's become really lean. He said to him, what do you mean he's become really lean? He said he's become lean in his stature out of how much worship he performs. Why does he do this? Ibn Abbas said, why do you think he does it? He said he does it because he wants to attain the Khilafah. Ibn Abbas said, but he had already been nominated for the Khilafah. To which the second caliph said, yes, he was nominated, but he was too young. Have you ever seen a prophet of God become a prophet at that age? Then at that moment, he said to him, anyway, the Khilafah will come to him one day, then he'll see what a slippery slope the Khilafah is. That was the third one. And in a fourth discussion they have, Umar ibn al-Khattab tells Ibn Abbas, he says to him, I feel sorry about what happened to your cousin. It was something unjust. Ibn Abbas says, then why don't you give him his leadership back? He said, because he was too young to be a leader. Ibn Abbas said, I don't think the Prophet thought he was too young when he let him reveal chapter 9, Surah At-Tawbah, to the Meccans. The point here is what? The point here is that the question has always been posed. Was Ali ibn Abi Talib too young to lead the Muslim Ummah? I'd like to dissect this topic in 5 stages. Number 1, what's the point of discussing such a topic 1,400 years later? Number 2, does God give authority and wisdom to people in their youth in the Quran or no? Number 3, did the Prophet ever appoint commanders younger than 33 when he was a prophet? Number 4, were there any caliphs after Amir al-Mu'mineen who were younger than him but no one opposed? And number 5, what was the CV of Amir al-Mu'mineen up until the age of 33? Did he have enough on his resume to warrant being a caliph? Or was he someone who didn't have enough on that resume? Let's discuss this and we would have dissected the topic in depth. On the first level, people pose the question, what's the point of bringing up such a discussion 1,400 years later? As it's not going to benefit us. What happened, happened, and now we move on. Let's look at more contemporary affairs. On the contrary, this discussion is as important as any other discussion you pose. Why? It is important on a number of levels which only those who go to the depths of academia will understand why this discussion is important. Number 1, this discussion highlights whether the religion of Islam, in its claim to be a holistic way of life, had a political system that was established by the Prophet, or whether it was a haphazard political system. What do I mean? You see, this discussion tells us either that the Prophet of God, who came to bring a social aspect to the life of the human being, an economic aspect to the life of the human being, a spiritual aspect to the life of the human being, a political aspect to the life of the human being. This discussion highlights to us whether the Prophet actually established a political system or he didn't. Because either the Prophet of God builds a political state in this world from which we are able to take precedence, or he left it to the people to make a haphazard political system. We notice with our Prophet that every area in life, he ensured that he was an example. In the economic sphere, he built an economic state. In the political sphere, he built a political state. In the social sphere, he built a political state. We, the Muslims, pride ourselves on the fact that our religion is a holistic system. Holistic meaning what? Meaning every single area in your life, the religion has been catered for. If we say the Prophet left behind a political system, then that judgment is one which can be ascertained. If, however, we say the Prophet left it to the people to decide, then that's a haphazard system. Why? Because the Prophet of God, who doesn't leave Mecca to Medina without appointing someone, how could he leave his whole religion without somebody to look after the religion? As in, there has to be a political system which is established. Haphazard political systems are those which do not survive. On the contrary, they are simply political systems which evolve over time. One time you appoint someone, the next time he sells sticks to appoint someone, the next time everybody elects someone, and before you know it, there isn't a rigid system. This discussion allows us to establish, did the Prophet of God establish a political system or no? That's number one. Number two, this discussion about the necessity of a leader in the Islamic community is the most important theological discussion in every school in the religion of Islam. You see, if you go to the 3rd and the 4th and the 5th century textbooks of theology, you'll find every school in the religion of Islam has a section called the necessity of the Imam. Why? Because they noticed that the moment they left it haphazardly in the hands of every Tom, Dick and Harry, what happened was that people didn't know what the exact system of politics was. You find every single concept of theology looks at the discussion about the necessity of a leader in the life of a human being. Go, for example, to Jahid's Risala al-Uthmaniyah. Go to Al-Ash'ari's Maqalat. Go to Qadi Abd al-Jabbar and his Majmu'. Go to Salim ibn Daqwan and his epistle for the Khawarij. Go to Shaykh al-Mufid and Sharif al-Muttaba and their works on the necessity of an Imam. The Islamic religion had a period where the scholars of the different schools of Islam would all sit and discuss the necessity of a leader. As in, you know, in the religion of Islam today, we have Mu'tazilites, we have Ash'arites, we have Zaydis, we have Ismailis, we have Baharas, we have Isna Asharis. Every single one of them has their own theology. Within each of their books of theology, there is a discussion about the necessity of an imam in the life of the human being. And you'll find, if you're a Mu'tazila, you'll go to Qadi Abd al-Jabbar, you'll read his Majmu'. If you're an Ash'arite, Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari has written within his Maqalat on this area. If you're even of the Khawarij, and the Khawarij are still present in the world today, in the forms of Ibadis, you'll still find the epistle of Salim ibn Daqwan. And you know what the tragedy is? The tragedy is that the Orientalists have written more about this issue than our own people. That's the tragedy. Our own people, it became a case of emotional backlash. Who can fight the other? Whereas the reality is, this is a topic which every Muslim should sit and exchange their opinions on. We made the mimbar a place where this topic became a place of fighting each other, of being rude to each other, of being condescending to each other. Whereas on the contrary, this is a topic about the necessity of a leader in the life of the human being. It's a topic which I, for example, may say that a leader is a necessity. Whereas others may say, no, the Prophet left behind enough of a system for scholars to then tell us how to lead our lives. When we discuss this issue on the second level, it's a theological issue. And you'll find many of the Orientalist academics. Wilfred Madelung, in his book, The Succession to Muhammad, has discussed this. Patricia Crone and Martin Hines in their book, God's Caliph, has discussed this. Asma Asfaruddin in her book, Excellence and Precedence in Medieval Islam, has discussed this. Many of the Orientalists in the Western world today have discussed this area, yet they discuss it with intellect, not with emotion. Some of our people, when they discuss this area, it's all emotional poetry, not academia. Whereas this needs an academic analysis. Number three, it's important to discuss this. Why? For 1,400 years, people have sacrificed their lives to remind you of Amir al-Mu'mineen's position. Don't, when it comes to you on a silver platter, say, it's not important for me. Do you know how many lost their lives protecting what happened on the day of Ghadir? And yet you have the audacity in 2009 to say the same old thing. Did you see them when they lost their lives to protect you, so you have an actual establishment of leadership today? All those companions who sacrificed their lives to protect what happened on the day of Ghadir. And then when it comes to you in 2009 and you think you've become a modernistic contemporary thinker, you turn around and you say that that's all a historical issue. We should only look at contemporary issues. When you receive something on a silver platter, don't neglect that blessing. Because you're going to have to look after that silver platter for another generation to come. Therefore, you find on the first level, is it important? Without a doubt, it's of the utmost importance. Let's go on the analysis. They say Ali ibn Abi Talib was too young on that day. 33 years is not enough for a person to assume the helm of leadership. The first question to be raised, does God provide leadership and authority to anybody in the Quran at a young age or no? As in, has God said you have to be 40 for you to be an authority figure? Or does God show us in the Quran that there were certain figures who were young, who He gave them wisdom? Let's look at a few examples. The first example to look at of a personality who was given wisdom while young was the Prophet Ismail alayhi salam. How? When the Prophet Ibrahim sees his dream that he must sacrifice his son at the time was in his teens and nothing more. In his teens, you would expect that if a father comes to a son and says to him that I want you to come with me and I want you to come because I've got a rope and a knife in my hand. Many sons at that moment would probably say, Father, you go your own way, inshallah, I'll live my own life as well. Whereas you find with the Prophet Ibrahim, when he told his son, Inni ara fil manami anni azbahuk, fanzur mada tara, I see in my dream that I must sacrifice you. What's your opinion? His reply was a reply of somebody who God has given wisdom at a young age. Because when you read the reply in Surah 37 of the Quran, what does the reply say? The reply says, قَالَ يَا أَبَتِ افْعَلْ مَا تُؤْمَرْ سَتَجِدُنِي إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهِ مِنَ الصَّابِرِينَ. Oh my father, do as you've been commanded to do. You'll find me as one of the patient ones. Here, this issue of the patient one is an issue of wisdom beyond his age. It's as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us that, look at this Ismail. He has reached a level in his soul where he's ready to sacrifice his whole life to ensure that he is obedient to his Lord. When he says, oh my father, you'll find me as being of the patient ones, he says this with an amount of maturity that is beyond his years. And if you ask anybody in the religion of Islam, how old was Ismail when he said these lines? They'll say to you, he wasn't older than his teens. Yet nobody denies that the wisdom he had achieved was beyond his years. That's number one. Number two, the Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. The Prophet Yusuf, right at the beginning of his story, in the beginning of his story, he tells his father, oh my father, I see in my dream. When he says, I see all the stars all prostrating before. When he sees this, there is something extraordinary about what he says about the dream. What is it? He makes that which is inanimate become animate. In which way? Stars are inanimate. And the idea that stars don't have human qualities in the sense that you say a star is in sujood. When he is saying, I see the stars in prostration, he is highlighting that I know that the dream doesn't mean stars. I know that the interpretation of this dream is that it's human beings who are performing prostration. The ulama say, look at the grammar of the Arabic of Yusuf when he talks. The grammar of the Arabic is what? The grammar of the Arabic is that Yusuf is already interpreting his dream while he's telling it to his father. This highlighted what? That Nabi Yusuf was a young man at the time. It was even before his brothers had thrown him in the well, before he had gone to Egypt and Zulaykha. Yet what do you find? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks of him being a prophet at that young age. That he's able to receive commands from Allah through dreams. That's number two. Number three, John the Baptist, the Prophet Yahya in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it clear that we have given him authority while he was young. But notice what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about him in the Arabic language. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَآتَيْنَاهُ الْحُكْمَ صَبِيًّا. We gave him authority while he was a sabi. Question, what is a sabi? A sabi is somebody who a sabi is somebody who is not even reached their teenage years. John the Baptist, the son of Prophet Zechariah, had reached a level of wisdom before his teenage years that God had said, this man is an example for all of you. We have given him authority while he is young. If you go to any Christian in the world today, tell them John the Baptist and Jesus Christ, in their young age, tell us their parables. They'll tell you all their parables throughout their life. And as we know, John the Baptist and Jesus Christ did not live longer than 33 years in this world. Jesus, son of Mary, 33 at most. John the Baptist was killed in his 30s. You find that both of them, God had given them authority at a young age. John the Baptist, God said, in his teens, I've given him authority. Jesus, son of Mary, God gave him authority when he was born. And even lower level, to show us that there is no age limit when it comes to wisdom. As soon as Nabi Isa was born, the Quran says, he said, Inni Abdullah hatani al-kitab wa ja'alani nabiyya. I am the servant of Allah. He has given me the book. Wa ja'alani nabiyya. And he has made me a prophet. Tell me, Nabi Isa, when Allah said he had made him a prophet, how old was he? Nabi Isa was a few days old and he said, Allah has made me a Nabi. I have been appointed to be a Nabi at this young age. Therefore, on the first level, when someone says Amir al-Mu'mineen was too young on that day, on the contrary, the Quran shows us a precedent which is different. That's number one. Number two, on the second level, what do we find? The Prophet of God, when he appointed commanders, did he say you have to be above a certain age to become head of an army? Or when he left Mecca to go to Medina, or when he left Mecca to go to a war, would he employ governors who are younger or who are older? This is very important for the youth. Why? Because many times the youth ask me, who are our role models in the religion of Islam? As in, who are the people we look up to? Sometimes they have the perception that because the imams sound so old with their age and wisdom, sometimes they think, well, we don't have any role models. This religion was built by men under the age of 30. This religion was built by men under the age of 30. And Rasulullah would purposely appoint them under the age of 30. Why? To highlight that I don't look for the age of the person. I look for the quality of wisdom in that job. Does he have the ability to take on responsibility? I'll appoint him. Let's look at a few examples of Rasulullah and the appointments of youth in the Islamic State. The first example you take of Rasulullah appointing someone young in the Islamic State, Usama ibn Zayd. Usama ibn Zayd was an 18-year-old who Rasulullah appointed to be commander of the forces who were to fight the Romans when Rasulullah was about to die. Some people ask the question, why did he appoint an 18-year-old? Because 3 years earlier, in the Battle of Hunayn, Usama made a momentous grandstand with Amir al-Mu'mineen when Amir al-Mu'mineen was alone in the battle. You see, many of our followers don't read about the Battle of Hunayn. But in my opinion, Ali ibn Abi Talib's greatest performance in a battle was on the day of Hunayn. Some people say Khaybar, others may say Khandaq. Hunayn was his greatest performance. Do you know why? Because in Hunayn, Ali ibn Abi Talib had to fight the pure Arabs of Saqif, of Ta'if. Every one of the tribes of the Arabs had come towards Islam when Rasulullah opened Mecca. There were only 2 tribes who hadn't accepted Islam. Rasulullah said to them, look, if you're not going to accept Islam, at least pay the tax to live within the state. They said, we won't pay any tax. We'll fight you and we'll fight your whole army. He said to them, where? They said, we'll fight in Ta'if. This is our land and we'll fight you there. Do you know what the narration states? The narration states that Rasulullah had an army of 12,000 soldiers. The opposition had an army of 4,000. Rasulullah, who was heading the army? Khalid ibn al-Walid on one side, Ali ibn Abi Talib on the other. Rasulullah told Khalid ibn al-Walid, Khalid, when you fight, do not be arrogant. Because there was a time when we were 313 and they were 950. And we defeated them. Today we are 12,000, they are 4,000. If we approach the battle with the same arrogance, we'll be defeated. The Muslims went with 12,000, the opposition had 4,000. Yet the opposition had 2 in their army. They used to call them the double combo. Double combo means what? Means that these 2 had never ever lost on the battlefield. Who were they? Malik ibn Auf al-Nasri and Uthman ibn Abdullah. And you know what these 2 said before the battle? They said, let us face Ali ibn Abi Talib, the 2 of us against him. If we finish him, we'll finish the whole religion. They had been waiting for the day to face Ali ibn Abi Talib in combat. All these years, they've heard about the battles. They've never lost in a battle. But they weren't involved when he was involved. On this occasion in Hunayn, they said to their soldiers, 4,000 of them against 12, that you know what? Leave us against Ali ibn Abi Talib, we'll finish the army off. Do you know what the narration says? Khalid bin Walid entered that army. He went towards fighting them. He saw this place between two mountains. Because you know the area of Ta'if is all big mountains. He tried to go through with the army. Those two commanders, what did they do? They had hidden their forces on the top of the mountain. Khalid bin Walid tried to go through the mountain. They brought all their soldiers down from the mountain. Before you knew it, they all chased the Muslim soldiers. 12,000 Muslim soldiers entering. Do you know how many remained? 8. The rest had all run away. They had turned around. It's not laughing matter. They had turned around and they had all run away except Amir al-Mu'mineen and 7 companions. Of these 7, one was a 15-year-old called Usama. So when a couple of years later you're saying, how can an 18-year-old lead us? It's because, don't you remember a couple of years earlier? Amir al-Mu'mineen was with 7 who remained. Let's look at Amir al-Mu'mineen, what he said to him. He said to him, Usama, just watch my back. There's only 2 of them we need to finish. When we finish the 2 of them, then the rest of the army will run away. And you found a situation where Usama said, I was only 15 defending the back of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He said the rest had all run away, to the extent one of the grand ones, he says, this is the will of Allah, what can we do? Whereas Rasulullah said, no, you have the free will to change this. Usama said that day, Ali ibn Abi Talib was like a demon possessed on a battlefield. He said the way Ali ibn Abi Talib went through those mountains against those soldiers, no one will ever see a human being go through this again. He remained with those 8. Once they finished their leaders off, the rest ran away. Usama, Rasulullah appointed him before he died to be commander of the army that goes to fight the Romans. Why? Because the Romans had killed Usama's father, Zayd. Zayd, the adopted son of Rasulullah, was killed in the battle of Mu'tah by the Romans. Therefore, Rasulullah appointed Usama. How old was Usama? 18. People objected. Yes, Rasulullah said, he has got the ability to lead all of you. It doesn't matter that he's 18, because age doesn't matter in authority. If you have the wisdom, you can lead. That's number 1. Number 2, Atab ibn Usayd. Atab ibn Usayd, you know who he was? The first person to lead Salat al-Jama'ah when Mecca was opened by Rasulullah. And you know this Atab ibn Usayd, Rasulullah made him governor of Mecca. When Rasulullah left Mecca for this battle, the battle of Hunayn, he made Atab the governor of the whole of Mecca. Do you know how old Atab was? 21. People came and said, Ya Rasulullah, he's a 21-year-old. There are people who are older than him who should be leaders. He said, no, that 21-year-old has a wisdom beyond his years. And I trust him to look after Mecca. Doesn't matter that he's 21. That's number 2. Number 3, Mus'ab ibn Umair. When Rasulullah told him to go and make peace between the Aus and the Khazraj, Mus'ab bin Umair came from the most upper class family in Mecca. To the extent that he used to always have the best perfumes sent to him from Syria. He was from the richest of families. He came towards Rasulullah. Rasulullah appointed him as the ambassador to make the people of Medina come towards Islam. Mus'ab bin Umair was 40, was he 50, was he 60? He was one of the youngest of the Sahaba. Yet Rasulullah said, that's my ambassador, Mus'ab. It doesn't matter that he's young. He has the ability to look after the Muslims. He is going to be governor. Number 4, Mu'adh bin Jabal. Mu'adh bin Jabal, Rasulullah made him become the ambassador to the people of Yemen. Do you know how old he was? 29 years of age. 29, you make him ambassador. People said, Ya Rasulullah, there are people who are older than him. Why aren't they the ambassadors? It doesn't matter. Mu'adh bin Jabal has the ability as a 29-year-old to be my ambassador. And you know mujtahids today, when they talk of ijtihad, amongst the sources they use is when Rasulullah had his conversation with Mu'adh bin Jabal, that Mu'adh, if you go there, how will you judge the people? He said, by the Quran. And then how? By your sunnah. But what if the Quran and the sunnah do not talk about the issue? Then he began to speak about ijtihad using the Quran and using the sunnah. It was from from there that you find some scholars say that the idea of jurisprudence and the idea of the principles of jurisprudence emerge. A 29-year-old becomes ambassador for where? For Yemen. You find even more than this, Ja'far ibn Abu Talib, the brother of Imam Ali. Rasulullah made him the ambassador of the Muslims when they went to meet the Christian priests in Africa. When they went to meet the Christian priests, when the Muslims were being oppressed, you know how old Ja'far was? 30 years of age. There were companions who were much older than him. But Rasulullah said, even though he's 30, he has the ability to look after this religion. He has the ability to be our ambassador. Rasulullah made him his ambassador to Africa. Therefore, on the second level, Rasulullah himself, throughout his life, his appointments are all of people who are in their youth. Number 3, were there caliphs after Imam Ali who were young? Wallah, there were caliphs after Ali ibn Abi Talib who were younger than him, yet people accepted. Yazid ibn Muawiyah. Yazid ibn Muawiyah, you think he was older than 32? When he became Khalifa, Yazid, 32 maximum, he was 32 years old. But why did they accept him? Because they said Yazid ibn Muawiyah is a cultured human being. You know, his mother is a Syrian, she's from Banu Kilab, a very cultured background. His father is of course an Umawi. Yazid ibn Muawiyah, there's a special gift he used to have. What is it? He only speaks to you in poetry. He doesn't speak normal talk. So if you talk to him, he only speaks in poetry to you. Because he's that good in his poetry. That's why when our 4th Imam was asked, Yazid, what do you think of him? They tried to make the Imam attack him. He replied, what do I think of Yazid? He's a good poet. Simple. You want me to attack him? That's not my character. We don't attack in this religion. But if you're asking me what's his trait, he's a poet. Without a shadow of doubt, there aren't poets like him. That Yazid ibn Muawiyah, when he looks at Sayyidah Zainab bin Sham, he only spoke to her in poetry. And that's why he said to her, he said, you know what, your Arabic is quite good, the way you talk, in a poetic form. And she replied, I'm only talking like this in front of you. Otherwise, I'd raise the level. Here you find what? You find that his poetry right in front of her. That made people say he's a great leader. It doesn't matter that he's 32 years of age. Did anyone object that he's too young to be a Muslim Khalifa? Those people who today, like the person in Saudi Arabia who said Hussein was wrong rising against Yazid. Why don't you talk about Yazid being a young Khalifa? In the same way you object to Amir al-Mu'mineen being young. Yazid was 32. Yazid's son Muawiyah, who used to love Amir al-Mu'mineen. This Muawiyah was a young man when he became Khalifa. How did he love Amir al-Mu'mineen? He had a personal tutor who instilled the love of Ali ibn Abi Talib in him. Look how sometimes the Khabith comes from the Tayyib and the Tayyib from the Khabith. This Muawiyah, son of Yazid, his father has killed Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, yet he comes out as what? He comes out as a lover of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Go further than this. Our brothers in other schools in Islam say there are 5 rightly guided khulafa. Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Ali and Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz is the man who stopped the la'na on Amir al-Mu'mineen on the Friday prayer. He is the man who gave Fadak back to Imam al-Baqir. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, when he became Khalifa, how old was he? He was 30 years of age. There is not a single historian in history who says Umar ibn Abdul Aziz was too young to lead the Muslim Ummah. Do you know what they say? Umar bin Abdul Aziz, the beacon of light, the man of wisdom, the man of justice. But why don't you talk about his age? He was only 30 when he became Khalifa. If Khilafah should be for the elder, then shouldn't there be people who are older than him who become Khulafa? Yes, Umar bin Abdul Aziz was 30, nobody objected. Ali ibn Abi Talib was 33, everybody objected. And that's why when you come to the final area, Amir al-Mu'mineen, 33 years and 5 months he was on the day of Ghadir. His CV, does it have anything on it for him to be a leader or no? Because when you apply for a job, you need a CV or you need a resume. That CV or resume will say that the following areas is what he gave to the religion of Islam. Ali ibn Abi Talib, in those first 33 years of his life, did he give anything to the religion of Islam or no? As in normally, if you want to make a case for someone, you'll make a case that this person deserves to be Khalifa. But what's the point that he had in his life? There are 10 I'd like to focus on. And these 10 points are just a glimpse of the first 33 years Ali ibn Abi Talib gave the religion of Islam. Because remember, whenever you talk about Ali ibn Abi Talib, you have to honor Rasulullah. Why? Because Amir al-Mu'mineen was brought up in the cradle of Rasulullah. Therefore, any time you have a question mark about the character of Ali, you have a question mark about the character of Muhammad. Because in that moment, Amir al-Mu'mineen himself, what does he say in Nahj al-Balagha? He says, you know the high esteem in which I was held by the Prophet because of our near relationship. And you know the high position and respect that I enjoyed under his eyes. During my childhood, he used to foster me in his care and used to stick me to his bosom. He would take me and embrace me in his bed, and I used to smell the fragrance which was beautiful coming from him. I used to follow him like the offspring of a she-camel follows its mother. When he would go to Hira, I would go and see the revelation. When he would hoist the banner of moral virtue, I would be the first to act on account of that banner. When the religion was only him and Khadija, I was the third of the three. I used to see the light of revelation and I used to smell the fragrance of Rasulullah. Imagine him. He makes it clear that when you're looking at my character, know that I was brought up by Rasulullah. Why? Because of the famine in Arabia. There was a famine in Arabia when Amir al-Mu'mineen was born. Abu Talib had 6 children, 4 sons and 2 daughters. Because of the famine, Abu Talib was finding it hard to bring up these children. So Abu Talib's brothers Hamza and Abbas and his nephew the Prophet came to him. Hamza said, "Oh Abu Talib, I'll look after Ja'far for you." Abbas said, "Oh Abu Talib, I'll look after Aqil for you." Rasulullah said, "Oh Abu Talib, I'll look after Ali for you." Now that I'll look after Ali isn't that I just thought, you know what, it's just a game of chance, I'll take Ali. No. I want to bring up Amir al-Mu'mineen so he looks after this religion after I die. So he protects the religion of Islam. Hence, when you look at the resume of Ali ibn Abi Talib, let's look whether this resume had anything in it to deserve any khilafah. The first point of Ali ibn Abi Talib's resume is what? Is that in the age of 10 years of age, Ali ibn Abi Talib was already bringing people towards the religion of Islam. Why? Because you know there's 30 years difference between Ali ibn Abi Talib and Rasulullah. 30 years. Rasulullah, when he was 40, he came forward with his prophethood. Amir al-Mu'mineen was 10 years old. People think Amir al-Mu'mineen was just a young man. He had absolutely nothing to do at the time. Who made Abu Dhar al-Ghafari a Muslim? Who made Abu Dhar al-Ghafari come towards Islam? Abu Dhar al-Ghafari heard about Islam from his tribe, Banu Ghafar. They were all highway bandits, highway thieves. Banu Ghafar, you don't mess about with them, put it that way. Abu Dhar al-Ghafari came on the tribe, but he used to always love the religion and to think about God. He'd always reflect about his creation. When he heard about the religion of Islam and that there was a prophet who just talked about his prophethood, Abu Dhar went towards Mecca. When he entered Mecca, he would always look around the Kaaba just to see, is there anyone who looks like they're praying? He'd come, people would talk with him, he'd talk a bit and walk away. Until a 10-year-old came to him. He looked at him and he said, "You seem lost." He said, yes, I'm just looking for someone." He goes, no, tell me who he is. Who is it? He said, "I don't think you'll know him." He said, "Maybe I might know him." He said, "I'm looking for Muhammad." He said, "Yes, I think I know him. Come with me." He began to talk with him about the religion of Islam as a young man. He began to explain to him the principles of the religion of Islam. He then took Abu Dhar al-Ghafari into Rasulullah's house. Abu Dhar al-Ghafari, when he saw Rasulullah, he embraced Rasulullah. He said, "Ya Rasulullah, I have been waiting to meet you. I always believed in this message that it is there, but I've been waiting for the man who will bring it." Rasulullah very well tells him, "Abu Dhar, now that you've done your shahada, don't tell anyone." He said, yes, I won't tell anyone." He said, "You sure?" He said, "I definitely won't tell anyone." A few minutes later, Abu Dhar goes and stands on the top of the Kaaba. "Oh people, there is no God but God, and Muhammad is the messenger of God, and anyone who has a problem, come to me." What we said to you, don't tell anyone. Suddenly everyone jumps on Abu Dhar trying to hit him. Amir al-Mu'mineen, young man, but came to try and remove them. They brought Abu Dhar back to Rasulullah. Rasulullah said, "Ya Abu Dhar, do not tell people." And those of you who've studied Abu Dhar's life later will know Abu Dhar doesn't stay quiet. When Abu Dhar sees injustice, he doesn't stay quiet. Rasulullah said to Abu Dhar, "Remain quiet." He said, "Yeah, no problem, Ya Rasulullah, it won't happen again." 2 minutes later, Abu Dhar is back on top of the Kaaba. "Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. وَأَشْهَدُ أَنَّ مُحَمَّدًا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ." And anyone who has a problem, come and tell me. And they all jumped on Abu Dhar again. This time, the uncle of Rasulullah, Abbas, came near them when they were hitting Abu Dhar. He said, "Do you know you are hitting a member of Banu Ghafar?" Everybody ran away. People said, why has everybody run away? Abbas said, don't you know who this tribe is? They're the highway thieves. If they found out that you've hit their son, there's no way you'll ever have a trade caravan again in your life. So everybody ran away. It was Amir al-Mu'mineen at that tender age who brought Abu Dhar towards Rasulullah. Number one. Number two, 3 years later, when the verse was revealed, Surah 26, verse 214, وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, and warn your nearest relatives. Rasulullah was ordered to bring his family towards the Da'wat al-Ashira, which many of you have studied. When he was ordered to bring them, everybody came. Abu Lahab, Abu Talib, Abbas, every member of his family. Rasulullah told Amir al-Mu'mineen to prepare that feast. Amir al-Mu'mineen was a 13-year-old on that day. Rasulullah made it clear to his family that there is only one God, and that I'm the messenger of God, and that whoever accepts my message will come towards having salvation on the day of judgment. And he said, whoever accepts this message will be the Khalifa and the Wasi after me. Clear words. Read any book of history. Read the main works. Rasulullah says, whoever accepts me will be the Khalifa and my Wasi after me. You want the verse? Surah 26, verse 214. The verse is very clear. وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ. Nobody would accept him except his son-in-law, Ali ibn Abi Talib. Amir al-Mu'mineen said, Ya Rasulullah, I accept you. Ya Rasulullah, I accept you. Ya Rasulullah, I accept you. He was 13 at the time. Some people would come forward later on and say, he was only 13. He didn't understand what he was saying. Yet you find our brothers have a beautiful narration in their book. That's when Ali ibn Abi Talib said, Ya Rasulullah, I accept what you are, and I accept what you are saying. There is a narration which says that Rasulullah says to him, from our brothers in other schools, that Rasulullah said to him, O son of Abu Talib, have you asked your father before you submit to Islam? To which Amir al-Mu'mineen replied, Allah did not ask my father when he created me, therefore I don't need to ask my father when I submit back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. 13 years old, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Rasulullah announces clearly, he is the Khalifa and he is the Wasi after me on that occasion. That's number two. Number three, on the night of Hijrah, did Ali ibn Abi Talib give anything away to the religion of Islam on the night of the migration? Some people only say Ali ibn Abi Talib, he slept in the bed of Rasulullah. Ali ibn Abi Talib had 3 responsibilities on the night of Hijrah. What were they? Number one, to sleep on the bed of Rasulullah. That Rasulullah said to him, Ali, would you sleep in my bed? He replied, Ya Rasulullah, would it mean that your life is protected? He said, yes. He said, then Ya Rasulullah, my life is sacrificed for your life. And it's an honor for me to sleep on that bed. That was his first role. His second role on that night, and how old was he on that night, brothers and sisters? 22 years old. Tell me, how many 22-year-olds do you give a trust like that? 22 years old, he let him, and on the second responsibility, he had to take all the Fatimas back to Medina. Fatima bint Asad, his mother. Fatima his Zahra, his future wife. Fatima, the daughter of Hamza ibn Abd al-Muttalib. All of these Fatimas, Rasulullah said, when you are saved from that bed, you must bring all these Fatimas. What was his third responsibility on that night? Tell me. There were elder people. Why didn't Rasulullah give them all these responsibilities? On that night, his third responsibility, the enemies who don't believe in my message, they trust me as being al-Amin, the trustworthy. So they've all left their deposits with me. Imagine, the very people who want to kill you, they leave their deposits with you because you're trustworthy. So he said, Oh Ali, I want you to return the deposits back towards the people. So after he went and slept in the bed, the next day, whatever of the deposits the kuffar had left with Rasulullah, he went back to each one of them and he said, here's your deposit, because Rasulullah said, I must return your amana back to you. That's number 3. Number 4, when he went towards Medina, what did Imam Ali do? As soon as he entered Medina, Rasulullah brought the Muhajirun. Muhajirun are those who came from Mecca to Medina. They done Hijrah. And he brought the Ansar. The Ansar are the people of Medina. He said, I don't want there to be animosity between the people of Mecca and the people of Medina. I want you all to be brothers of one another. He called Abu Bakr. He said, Oh Abu Bakr, come near me. And he brought Kharija bin Zuhair al-Khazraji. He said, you come near me. He made them brothers with one another. He brought Aitan ibn Malik and Umar ibn al-Khattab. He made them brothers of one another. He brought Al-Aws ibn Thabit and Uthman ibn Affan. He made them brothers of one another. They said, Ya Rasulullah, how about Ali? He said, Ali is to me like Aaron is to Moses. And that Ali ibn Abi Talib on that day, how old was he? He was on that day 23 years old. Rasulullah made it clear that Ali ibn Abi Talib isn't a brother of nobody but myself. Me and Ali ibn Abi Talib, we are in brotherhood with another. That's number 4. Number 5. At the age of 25, Rasulullah gave Fatima to Ali ibn Abi Talib. Tell me, did older people propose to Fatima or no? Yes, they did. If it's about age, why doesn't Rasulullah let the elders? Abdul Rahman bin Auf was older than Ali ibn Abi Talib. He proposed to Fatima al-Zahra, was not accepted by Fatima al-Zahra. Abu Bakr proposed to Fatima al-Zahra. Again, he wasn't accepted. Umar ibn al-Khattab proposed to Fatima al-Zahra. Again, he was accepted. The 5th merit Ali ibn Abi Talib had was that Fatima al-Zahra chose him as her husband. At the age of 25, when there were people older, surely if it's an Arabian thing to go for the elder statesmen, why don't you go for those who are older? They are wiser. They are politicians. No, I go for the one who my father says has the most wisdom. And she chose Amir al-Mu'min. Number 5. Number 6. In the battle of Khandaq, when there were all of the elder companions who were sitting down. If it's about age, shouldn't you have the ability to fight the opposition? When Amr ibn Widd al-Amiri comes out and says, who will fight me? I am Amr ibn Widd, the man who can defeat anyone. I am the one who is proud of wrestling the lions. I run after them to fight them. Only a young man, at what age? At the age of 28 he was. There were so many older companions alongside him, but the 28-year-old Ali ibn Abi Talib comes forward and he says, I'll fight Amr ibn Widd until he finishes him. Number 7, the Hudaybiyah treaty. When Rasulullah signed the treaty of Hudaybiyah with the Quraysh, who did he ask to write the Hudaybiyah treaty? Weren't there older people than Ali ibn Abi Talib present or no? There were many older. But Rasulullah said, only Ali ibn Abi Talib can write the Hudaybiyah treaty. And this is a significant point politically. Why? Because some people say, Ali ibn Abi Talib, spiritually we respect him. Politically he's not that good. Here's an indication, Rasulullah felt there was no one to look after the political affairs better than him. That he's ordered that he's the one who writes the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Number 8, and very importantly, you find that when it came towards writing the treaty with the people of Mubahala, Ali ibn Abi Talib is the one who wrote the treaty with the Christians. You know the story when the Christians came to Medina? Who wrote the treaty? Hudaybiyah and Mubahala, the 2 most important political treaties in Islamic history, were both written with the pen of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Isn't this enough on the TV? Number 9, who revealed chapter 9 of the Quran, Surah At-Tawbah, to the Meccans, even though he had killed their fathers at Badr, and he had killed their fathers at Hunayn? Ali ibn Abi Talib was given the honor. Even though they were elder than him, he called back the one elder. He said, I'm sorry, you have to come back. The elder one said, why? He said, because Allah has said, either I must reveal it, or someone who is from myself. And then on the day of Ghadir, that was the icing on the cake, to say that this is the day where the man who is of myself, he takes over the political authority today. And that's why the irony is this, that they say Ali ibn Abi Talib was too young to lead the Muslim Ummah at 33. When it came towards choosing a Khalifa after the second Caliph had died, Ali ibn Abi Talib was how old? He was 45 years of age. Yet did they choose him or no? Surely he had gone older. At 45, isn't he more wise, according to them? Yet again, when he was asked, you will be Khalifa, he replied by saying, what are the conditions? They said, to be Khalifa, you have to follow the Sunnah of Rasulullah and of Abu Bakr and of Umar. What did he reply? I'll follow the Sunnah of Rasulullah, but not the Sunnah of anyone else. Why? Because the Sunnah of anyone else, if it's the same as Rasulullah, you don't need to mention anyone else's name. And then after that, after the 3rd Caliph had passed away, Ali ibn Abi Talib at the age of 58. Surely now, he's not 33 anymore. He's not 45 anymore. He's 58. Surely now you'd show him respect. Did they show him any respect when he became Khalifa? The biggest oppression in Islamic history was the 4.5 years they forced Ali ibn Abi Talib as Khalifa. Do you think it's something simple? When you come to me and I ask you about the Battle of the Camel and you say, God willed it, we can't talk about it. If God willed the Battle of the Camel, the Battle of Siffin, what is it? God willed that as well against Ali ibn Abi Talib? And the Battle of Nahrawan, God willed that as well against Ali ibn Abi Talib? 4.5 years, Ali ibn Abi Talib, surely now he's 58. I can understand. 33, you said he's young. 58, surely you have respect for the man. At 58 years of age, they did not let him rest one day in his life as a Khalifa. The man who had given everything away for this religion. And that's why on the day of Jamal, when they asked the question, they said, we see companions on one side, and we see companions on the other. And we do not know where the truth is, and we don't know where the falsehood is. How could companions fight each other? He replied by saying, don't look at the personalities and then look at the truth. First look at the truth and then judge the personalities. Did you not hear Rasulullah say that Ali is with the truth and the truth is with Ali? How has it then reached the level where you fight me, even though at the very young age I helped build this religion with Rasulullah? And it was a dagger in his heart when he saw his cousin Zubair fight him in the Battle of Jamal. Because he thought, surely Zubair, my own family member, wouldn't come out and fight. He came out and fought him. And you know what the irony of ironies is in the Battle of Siffin? That it took the death of Ammar ibn Yasir for people to realize who's on the truth. What a tragic history we have. When Ammar ibn Yasir died, people said, oh, Ammar ibn Yasir, Rasulullah said he will be killed by infidels. That means Ali ibn Abi Talib's army is right and we are wrong. And how about Ali ibn Abi Talib? So Ammar ibn Yasir is what gauges for you the truth. And Ali ibn Abi Talib, absolutely forgotten. Forgotten. And you find that after that battle of Nahrawan, it seemed that Amir al-Mu'mineen was tired of his life. That from the day he lost Fatima, his wife, and from the days that he saw oppression, and the days he tried to uphold this religion, I tell you, Ali ibn Abi Talib viewed the Khilafah like a mother would view its baby. It would want to see its baby protected, and that's the way he would look at the Khilafah. Do you know, after the Battle of Nahrawan, there is a narration which states that he was returning after the battle. He saw this lady who was sitting alone. The lady was trying to make bread for her family. When she was trying to make bread for her family, as he came to help her, he said to her, oh lady, are you alright? Do you need any help? She said, may God curse Ali ibn Abi Talib. He looked at her and he said to her, why do you say this? She replied by saying, because Ali ibn Abi Talib took my sons to war. They are dead and now he is alive. May God curse him. He said to her, so, oh lady, what do you do now in your house? Look at the character of this man. After everything he gave and everything he went through, when a lady curses him, he still shows respect back to her. He says to her, oh lady, so what do you do now? She says, I have nothing to feed my children. I pretend to them that I'm stirring this water to keep it hot, that if there's a meal coming, I'll give them. But they go to sleep with nothing. He said to her, oh lady, can I come every morning and help you make the bread? Can I help bring the wheat for you? Brothers and sisters, this is the man, and the man who we honor tonight. Tell me how many of you would do that? If a lady cursed you right in front of you, would you offer your services? The narration says that he would come every morning and he'd lift the grain for her and he'd come and help her and then he'd leave. Every morning he did this until one day her daughter came back home. When she was entering, she saw him leaving. When she saw him leaving, she said to her mother, oh mother, did you see who just left our house? The mother replied by saying that I don't know him, but he is such a generous man and such a humble man. But I have not known his name. Do you know his name? She replied, that is Ali ibn Abi Talib. When the mother heard that that was Amir al-Mu'mineen, she ran towards Ali ibn Abi Talib. She ran towards him and she placed herself near his feet and she said to him, oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, forgive me for what I've said. Yet it's this line that hurts you. There is this line which he replies to her. He says to her, oh lady, I ask you to ask Allah to forgive me, that if any way I have hurt you in what I've done, I didn't mean to hurt you in what I did. I was just trying to protect the religion of Islam. And it was those members of the Battle of Nahrawan who eventually would come back to kill him. That Qatam had asked Ibn Muljam. She had said to him, I'll give you whatever you want, just kill Ali ibn Abi Talib. As we know, on a night like this, the poison has surrounded his body. The doctor, Asir bin Amr al-Sakuni, he came towards Amir al-Mu'mineen and he said to him, oh son of Abu Talib, you have to now say your wasiyah, you have to write your will. Amir al-Mu'mineen now recognized
realized that these were his final moments. His sons and his daughters had now surrounded his bed, so he decided to make sure that he narrated them his wasiyah. I'd like each and every one of you to hear the words of this wasiyah and ask yourself, are you honoring the words of the wasiyah of Imam Ali? بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. هذه وصية العبد لله أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب أنه يشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون وأن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين. Oh my children, I advise you to be conscious of Allah and steadfast in your religion. Do not yearn for this world, nor should you be seduced by it. Do not resent anything that you have missed in it. Always proclaim the truth and work for the next world. Oppose the oppressor and support the oppressed. I advise you and all my children and all my relatives and all those who hear this message to be conscious of their religion, to come forward and remove their differences and to strengthen their ties. For Rasulullah said reconciliation of differences is greater than fasting and prayer. Fear Allah in relation to your prayers. They are the pillar of your religion and the greatest of deeds. Fear Allah in relation to fasting, for it is a protection from hellfire. Fear Allah in relation to giving charity, for it cools the divine anger. Fear Allah in relation to your neighbors, that Rasulullah talks about the neighbors so much I thought they would have a share in the inheritance. Fear Allah in relation to his house. As long as you live, do not abandon his house, for if you abandon it, you abandon your dignity. Fear Allah in relation to the orphans of your community. Attend to their nutrition and do not forget their interest in the middle of yours. Fear Allah in relation to your family members. Attend to them and look after them, for this will lighten your punishment on the day of judgment. Fear Allah in relation to the needy. Attend to their needs and make sure they join you when you eat. Pursue jihad with your money and with your tongue and with your souls. Remain attached to the Quran. Nobody should surpass you on being intent on it or be more sincere than you on implementing it. Maintain communication and exchange opinions between yourselves. Beware of disunity and enmity. Always encourage the good acts and forbid the evil. For if you do not forbid the evil, the worst amongst you will lead you. O children of Abd al-Muttalib, do not shed the blood of the Muslims under the banner that the Imam has been assassinated. Only the assassin should be condemned to death. If this one strike is the strike that kills me, then you should only strike him with one strike. Do not mutilate his body, for Rasulullah said, don't mutilate the body even of a rabid dog. When he saw Ibn Muljim in front of him, he looked at him that final time. He ordered Imam al-Hassan, go and get Ibn Muljim some water to drink. Imam al-Hassan said to him, my father, but he struck you on your head. He said to him, oh my son Hassan, can you not tell that the man is in fear, and I can't bear to see a human being in the state of fear in front of me. He then said to Imam al-Hassan, untie the rope from the hands of Ibn Muljim. He said to him, why? He said, I cannot bear to see a human being with their hands tied like that in front of me. If you had a father like Ali ibn Abi Talib, could you take him, seeing him in pain in this way? That's why when he finished his wasiyah, he began to stretch out his legs. He began to move his hands. He then said to each of his children, I want you to come near me one by one. MashaAllah, MashaAllah. He said, I want you to come near me one by one. The first of them he called was Sayed Zainab. He said to her, come near me. She said to him, oh my father, what is it? He said, my will to you is that you protect your brother Imam al-Hassan. He then called he called Sayyidah Kulthum. He said to her, come near me, and she came near him. He said, my will to you is to protect Imam al-Hassan. He then called Abu Abdullah. He said to him, Abu Abdullah, my will to you is to protect Imam al-Hassan. When he began to tell them each, al-Bani came towards Amir al-Mu'mineen. You know where I'm going, I'll leave it in your hands. She came to him and she said, oh my beloved Amir al-Mu'mineen, you gave a will to each of your children, but how about my son Abu Fadl? Is there a will for him or isn't there? He said to her, call Abu Fadl, let him come near me now. When Abu Fadl came near me, he embraced him. He embraced those hands that would one day leave him. He said to him, Abu Fadl, I ask you to protect Abu Abdullah. Your role is to protect Abu Abdullah. I say to him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, if you were present on the 10th of Muharram, you'd be proud of the way your Abu Fadl protected Abu Abdullah. Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, when Abu Fadl's head was in the lap of Abu Abdullah, he would remove his head and Abu Abdullah would bring it back, and he'd remove his head and Abu Abdullah would bring it back. Then Abu Fadl would look at Abu Abdullah, he'd remember the wasiyah of his father, and he'd say, Ya Abu Abdullah, my head is in your lap, but in a moment where will your head be, O Abu Abdullah? He called back Sayyidah Zainab. He said, oh Sayyidah, come near me. She came near him. Do you know what she said to him? She said, oh my father, oh my Imam told me one day that we will be taken captives on the land of Karbala. Oh my father, is this true? He said to her, yes my dear Zainab, there'll be a day when they'll take you as captives and they'll take you and parade you around. I say to him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, if you saw the way they whipped Sayyidah Zainab when she left the Karbala, and then you know the way that they took her from one place to the other. But I'll leave you with this final note. Abu Abdullah in particular was affected by his father because he had such a closeness to his father. Remember, all of them are affected because they actually never lived much with their mother. Their father was the only figure in their lives. Their mother had died young. The narration, and this is a very difficult narration to narrate, one of our scholars narrates that when Abu Abdullah, when he came near his father, he fell flat on the chest of his father, Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen said to him, Abu Abdullah, I want you to remain strong. But he didn't hear a reply from Abu Abdullah. He then placed his hands on the heart of Abu Abdullah. Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, when you die, Abu Abdullah is on your chest. Nobody describes this line better than Imam Zain al-Abidin. Imam al-Baqir says, when my father Imam Zain al-Abidin, when the poison spread around his body, when it spread, I came to see him. He was crying, he was in pain. I came and I hugged his chest. When I hugged his chest, my father Zain al-Abidin began to cry. I said to him, oh my father, why is it that you cry? In a moment you'll see your grandfather Rasulullah. In a moment you'll see your father Abu Abdullah. Oh my father, why do you cry? He looked at me and he said, oh my son Muhammad, I cry because when I am dying you are on my chest. Whereas when my father Abu Abdullah was dying, do you know who sat on the chest of my father Abu Abdullah?
Raise your hands, brothers and sisters. Raise your hands. Raise your hands. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise us with Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, and to allow us to be amongst those who follow the message of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Allow us to honor the wasiyah of Amir al-Mu'mineen in every way that is possible. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise us with the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, to allow us to be amongst those who follow his message and follow his example. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all our Muslim brothers on this holy night around the Islamic world. Ya Allah, allow us to have the ziyaras of Amir al-Mu'mineen in the holy land of Najaf, and allow us to protect the message of Ali ibn Abi Talib. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the Surah al-Fatiha, but before it the loudest of salawat.